Good morning. Welcome to Morning Trust, the civic devotion for Nigerian citizens. Today is day 9 of this civic devotion, and we are going to be talking on the topic of borrowing and returning. Borrowing and returning. We're going to be reflecting, we're going to be discussing, meditating on this topic of borrowing and returning. You by now will know that in Morning Trust, we reflect on our lives as citizens of our country. We reflect on our social interactions and how they affect all of us, how they affect the everything around us, the balance, the rules, the order, the harmony, the cooperation, and create a society that we enjoy living in, or they create dysfunction for us. So today's topic is borrowing and returning, and we're looking at something very mundane, something that happens all the time around us in our various relationships, in our different relationships. So how does this concern citizenship? Somebody might ask. It goes a long way. It goes a long way. It goes a long way in affecting trust. Anything that affects trust affects cooperation, and anything that affects cooperation affects our lives as citizens. It's as simple as that. That's the framework. Anything that has the potential or capacity to strengthen trust or weaken trust has direct impact on cooperation, whether we can cooperate with each other or not. And as you know, society is a cooperative endeavor. Everybody existing in mutual cooperation with each other in different spheres and manners. So that thing called cooperation is the glue that holds any society together. And anything affecting it is directly impacting on our lives as citizens. So we want to bring it up for conversation today. Our reading is from 3 sources, as always. The first I'll take from the book of Psalms in the Bible, chapter 37, verse 21. Psalms 37, 21, talking about borrowing and returning. The Bible says, the wicked borrow and do not repay. In other words, the type of person that borrows without repaying, the Bible has categorized or described such an individual as wicked. The wicked borrow and do not repay. In the 16th book of the Quran, verse 91, the 16th book of the Quran, verse 91, the Quran enjoins every Muslim faithful. It says, fulfill every commitment. Again, the Quran, the holy book of the Quran says, fulfill every commitment. And in African philosophical compilations, we have an adage. As you know, adages are a compilation of our own wisdom, our own knowledge, our understandings gathered over the years, our philosophies on what is true. And we have an adage that says, trust is wealth that is greater than gold. Hey! Africans believe that trust, this thing called trust, it is a form of wealth that is greater than gold. For something to be greater than gold, as you know, gold is that natural resource that never diminishes in value. No matter the years that come and go, the centuries that pass, gold, a rare treasure that never diminishes in value, gathered directly from the earth. This adage says that trust, as intangible as it is a form of wealth far greater than gold. So it tells you in the rankings how you will view trust. How you should do everything. The way you do everything to gather gold is the way you must do everything to acquire trust and preserve trust and manage trust. So let's look at this. Borrowing and returning. How does it affect us? Think about your lives in the family, your relationships, your friendships. It's a constant exchanges. And some of these exchanges involve borrowing. Oh, can you lend me this thing? I will return it on so date. Can you lend me this money? I will return it on so date. beyond these informal relationships, even in the formal space, we have the concept of borrowing. People borrow from banks to start businesses. People borrow from individuals to start businesses with the promise to return. When usually in formal spaces, when you borrow, there are terms and conditions. There's interest attached to it. The lender says you will return it with this form of interest. So you see that borrowing is a part and parcel of our everyday lives and transactions. We're constantly borrowing. The expectation from the lender is that this item or this resource will be returned. So whenever you breach an agreement, a borrowing agreement, it is a form of theft. It's a form of theft because that was never the expectation. The promise inherent in that exchange was that, oh, it's only for a temporary period. I will return it. It's only for my use temporarily. Sometimes we even borrow the use of land. You take possession for a short time. Somebody leases it to you. It's not transfer of ownership. You are not being given that thing. You don't own it. You are to use it for a temporary period, and that period is oftentimes stated. So you see, this is the thing with borrowing. It's an agreement for the transfer of, a property or a resource to the hands of a person for temporary use. The expectation is that they don't own it, they will return it in the future. In formal spaces, this agreement is usually the basis for which businesses can start because, you need capital to flow. Somebody has more than they can use. Somebody needs it to start a business. You go to the banks. In fact, that's a major form of, business that banks offer, a major service that banks provide. Is borrowing, is lending. Lending to people who want to start out businesses, who have a form of a business model that at the end of it, if it executed successfully, will return profits. And so the borrower says, I want to be part of that. I will give you this sum of money. However, attached to it are terms. Usually there's collateral, so that in the event that you default, you don't pay back, I will claim this. So people, you have to attach measures to protect yourself because it's a risk. But this is to tell us that, while it is an essential part of social transactions, especially business-related transactions, or even survival, there is a component of trust involved in borrowing. There's always a risk, and anytime there's a risk, somebody is trusting you. And so you must honor that trust. You must honor your promise. In every borrowing relationship lies a promise of future return, either of the direct amount borrowed or including interest. That is borrowing for you. It is a promise that must be fulfilled. So you see, anything involving a promise holds a responsibility. The responsibility to keep your word. The responsibility to be accountable for that amount of money, to return it fully. In the event that there is a delay, that there is something that affects your ability to return it at the promised time, you must be accountable. You must reach out to the lender to explain, especially informally. Don't pretend that you forgot to, is that so? I didn't remember. No, we do it a lot informally. You borrow money from a friend, you borrow money from a relation, and when the time to repay has come and gone, you act as though you don't remember, as though you're not obligated, as though you don't hold a responsibility to somebody somewhere to fulfill a promise somewhere. That's dishonesty. That's, again, it's like I said, it's a form of theft. It's practicing dishonesty and deception. And what happens? Disappointment, and after disappointment, loss of confidence. Trust is destroyed. And anywhere trust is destroyed, cooperation is broken. The ability, we have an African adage, we shared it in one of the sessions. It said that, it talks about how a word is like a broken promise leaves a broken road behind it. That when you don't fulfill your promise, you are destroying the road. In other words, that place of past, that connecting point to destinies and to future goals and futures in general. You are destroying the road that will connect you to the future. So that's why we don't joke with honoring our obligations when we borrow. Because if you fail to do so, you are destroying the road. We have to respect agreements. Agreements are binding. There's a term called the gentleman's agreement. In other words, even if there's no signed contract, there's no, a deed, there's no formal process of bringing in witnesses, just by the handshake or the word of two gentlemen, a word is established. An agreement is deemed established. That is when people could be trusted. A gentleman is an individual who can be trusted. A gentlewoman is an individual who can be trusted. And it's important. Why is it important to be reliable? Because people's futures depend on it. Because people's welfare and well-being depend on it. Because people's success, people's progress depends on it. When I trust somebody with my resource, with my time, it's because I believe that I will accomplish my progress. I will achieve progress through that trust. That trust that I have made, that action that I have made in trust, or that decision I have taken in trust will lead to progress. That's the belief. That's why people do so. So when you break it, you are telling them that they cannot rely on you for their progress. They cannot rely on you for their well-being. You are not reliable for their futures. You are not dependable. A trust put on you will not be fulfilled, and that's dangerous. And trust doesn't just happen, it comes with consistency. You have a reputation over time for keeping your word. That's why they say your word is your bond. It will stand as surety for you because in the past you have honored it. So when you make a word today, that past word that you honored will stand for you as a surety. So you see, trust is built consistently by constantly honoring your word. You are communicating to people. You can be trusted. You are reliable. You can be depended upon. If you take something, you will return it. If you take something for a business, you will do everything to execute that business successfully. So some people will even be looking for any business proposal that you have because they know that once a business is being implemented by you, a business model, an idea is being executed by you, it will succeed. You have earned that trust. Some investors are actively looking out for specific entrepreneurs to invest in. But when every time you borrow from an investor, stories come, you're eroding trust. The banks will come and confiscate properties, seize, claim. It destroys transactions. It destroys transactions, business transactions. It destroys the flow of business transactions. If there's no trust, it destroys productivity. Because ultimately, people who invest in, who have capital, will not trust that they can work with the people in that community or that society or that space to render returns. So there will be less and less people standing by to invest in business ideas in an environment where there's no trust, where people borrow without returning. Your reputation will precede you. People will spread the information. Don't go there. They don't return money. Don't go to that company. Don't go to that team. Don't go to that group of people. They will not return your money. What a terrible thing. What a terrible thing. So again, trust is strengthened when people honor agreements. And borrowing is a form of agreement. When you return without damaging the items, the goods, you borrow a person's car to use for a period. When you return it, it's in a terrible state of wear and tear. Or a machine. You're a farmer. You're borrowing the tractors and you're using it carelessly. Tomorrow you want to come and have that item. It's not possible. It won't be given to you again because you didn't return it in the state in which you got it. You reduced its value. You destroyed it. So it's not only about returning, it's about returning it in a desirable state. Treating it as your own. Take care of things as though they belong to you. As though they are a cash cow from which you will earn tomorrow. Treat it carefully. Otherwise, you will weaken relationships. Because anything that destroys confidence, that destroys trust, implies a broken relationship, a broken road between people. Broken relationships mean there's no further cooperation. It is a threat to the society. It is a threat to mutual cooperation all around us. It is a threat to peaceful cohabitation. It is a threat to law and order. It is a threat to, business transactions, productivity and growth. It's a threat to security, to national productivity, to national safety, to collective well-being, to the public good. So it's not irrelevant, it's important. Please, let's do everything. Let's do everything. And lenders, don't impose unfair terms because people are desperate. Borrowers, honor your obligation to your lender. And avoid borrowing where it is avoidable. Don't borrow indiscriminately because the borrower is a slave to the lender. Yes, you are bound to fulfill their terms and conditions. They say, do this, you have to. So you see, it's not a desirable place to be. It's not something you should pursue as a general way of raising money. It's when things are unavoidable, or there's a huge scale business you want to embark upon and you need to pool resources for that purpose. And that means you would have done your due diligence, you would have done your risk analysis to make sure that this business is foolproof, is error proof. You mitigate as many risks as possible. Do the hard work, because a trust is reposed on your shoulders when you borrow something. A trust is reposed on your shoulders. May God help us to honor trust, to build trust through consistency, to be reliable when it matters, to respect agreements. Dear God, we thank you for a new day. We thank you for another opportunity to experience life on earth today. Help us to live purposefully, kindly, contentedly, brilliantly, and fully. Guide us, protect us, teach us, correct us, and inspire us. At the end of today, may we bring glory to your name and to our great nation, Nigeria. Amen.